G'day guys, welcome in to Two Blokes in a Cave. I'm your host Carlton, a amateur philosopher, and with me is Cameron Wright,
Okay.
government employee by day and Plato enthusiast by night.
Yes. Great. Emphasis on the play.
Plato, work hard, play hard. Okay, cool. Well, look, I guess we're a couple of buddies. Started this podcast to hang out together, basically, and talk about things that interest me mostly. And I just dragged Cameron in because I like him, so he's kind of stuck with me now. So
I don't really agree when I look back on that stuff at uni, tarring any sort of nations or whole sides of things with a big brush. I just think it's useless. Like when they say, you know, this thing's more this and this thing's more that, it's kind of wrong in general. Like to say like the whole West is more this and more that. I remember looking at it and be like, I don't even think that's true. Like in reality, like you could say we're more individualistic and they're more collective, but that's not really true. You can go in certain things where in some things we're more collective in some areas of life, and their things more individualistic. And in other, it's a nonsense thing to paint with such a wide brush. The entire culture, the entire culture is more collective. I'm like, maybe how they run the government. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't think, and the family life is a little bit. But yeah, moving on from that, the reason I guess why I went in there is because in that exact course they said that specifically Eastern nations believe far more in talent, and they don't actually historically
grind. Like, is it the
no, not sorry, talent. They believe in training and dedication.
Because we certainly have in the West, we tend to project heavily. Like if you're talented as a youngster, we project. Oh, it's gonna be great.
Yeah,
I think you're probably right. There's less emphasis on like you get your butt in the gym and.
No, that's it.
Or
So in the East, if you're like no good, it means you just didn't try hard enough, and they'll just be like, you need to work harder. Whereas in the West, we're like, oh, well, you're probably no good at that. And I think actually the belief of if you can or can't do it is actually one of the main things. If you think you can do it and you think you can get better, you kind of can. If you think you're an idiot and you can't get any better at like maths,
perception is reality type
it's
stuff.
A little bit like that, I reckon, because you know,
if someone told you regularly and often you're no good, it's going to have a negative effect on you. Unless you're a psycho who just loves to hear that. What the haters would be wrong. But there is an aspect of, you know, my parents certainly told me from a young age, probably maybe a little bit too much, but you know, you're special, you'd be good at this, and then you're like, yeah, I can do this, like I can do X. And I think there is an element. Maybe that's a difference. I couldn't tell you, you know, apart from the stereotypical sort of Asian parents that get back into the room and practice the piano for 6 hours, and it's more maybe more optimism. Just like, hey, you could be good at this or do this or whatnot. But you're right in that it is two worlds colliding. It is very, very hard to understand it, and I kind of lost for words as to how to summarize it neatly, but we don't have an easy way to meld such different cultures together.
No, it's difficult.
So it's
you
hard
bring
to
your
learn.
own things.
Yeah, it's just very difficult. Your own, you know, you could not to get too wanky and, you know, the modern university is everything's your own unique outlook, which is I think a bit outrageous, but it is almost impossible to learn and understand another culture without being in it, without seeing it, without experiencing it in some way, to then comment on it and learn about it. It just doesn't seem like it's possible, let alone it's a study that requires so much more than just jump in and read Confucius. Even though you might be like, oh, that sounds vaguely Aristotelian. Maybe that's like on the ball. I don't know. But you know, natural talent versus training. Who knew it was actually East versus West? Who knew?
Oh, well, that was just a slight example.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But I think that's very interesting too, because it, I know there's a guy in Missouri in America who I think has currently got the highest IQ in the world, and he's like a cattle farmer or something.
Right.
Yeah, super wild. Yeah. And I think someone had an interview with him recently, and they were talking about like, and he clearly is very switched on. Like he's very intelligent guy, and they're like, why aren't you like in academia? Well, that's better. And he's like, I'm living the dream, mate. I'm out here like chilling with the cows and doing my thing. But it just does seem, I don't know how I feel about this. This is just off the top of the old noggin here. For humanity to advance, we kind of need people like Elon Musk who sacrifice a
yeah.
lot to go and build rockets, but I would never want my son to do that. I'd want him to have like a healthy life, wife, children that he's a part of. You know, like that would be
Elon has like 10 different kids or something. 10 different people.
well, lots of different kids, which is great. But you know, is he? And I guess it's almost impossible for him to
Yeah.
be with his family as much because he's building rockets and going to Mars and neurolinking people's brains or something.
It's a hyper-focused individual.
It's a very interesting guy. Like it does seem. I guess I'm not sure.
I used to always think about it in this way, like there is a world record too, like the world's smartest person had like an IQ of 280 from like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It might be beaten by this cattle farmer, I don't know, but
I don't know
he
if
didn't
that
actually
high.
do anything. Like he went to uni, was pretty smart. I think he's coasted through,
Brilliant.
got a PhD, didn't come up with any new anything,
Yeah.
and kind of just like died pretty young, I think, from some disease.
Yeah,
And I think the
jeez.
way I used to think about it and the way I did is like, you can be super smart and your brain is an amazing machine and can calculate things really fast, but that doesn't mean
You'll do
it's
anyway.
good at picking up of what to think and how to think. Do you know what I mean? Like if
That'd be
you
a
can just
real
process
curse.
some stuff,
Yeah.
but you have like, so it's to do with what you're interested in too. Like Elon Musk is interested in flying rockets. Like he's in it. He's like all about flying to Mars. So
certainly is, yeah.
everything he does is like, let's go 100% of this crap. I don't want to listen to any of the haters. But like, if he's not as smart as maybe this Missouri guy, but he is putting all his energy into like specific ideas which seem to be working, and he's got a good way of thinking.
Yeah, right. Well, okay.
Like
But-
Einstein, they did that thing where they cut his brain up, right? And it's a normal brain. There's
Just
nothing bigger or
disrespect
smaller.
Einstein. You died. You know, rest
Well, you
in
can go and
peace,
see his,
says. Cut him up, mate.
I think he said do it just to have a look. Yeah, they can get his brain in like glass slices somewhere in Europe, I think. They said it's completely normal. It's just the way it works, the way he was thinking. It's like the way your neurons are ordered, not to match the speed of intelligence. The way that's done. That's why I used to think. What do you think about that?
Well, I think humans are infinitely malleable.
Yeah.
So I mean, I really, truly believe you could take anybody, and within a few weeks, I feel very confident that I could teach you how to play chess blindfolded in a month.
Right.
I
Well,
don't think
jeez.
that's not anything. And I only have my own mind, I only have my own experiences to go by, but you can become good at things fairly quickly if you actually put in concentrated effort into it. A lot of IQ seems a bit wanky to me. Like from what I've read a little bit, it's mostly measuring the speed at which you can take new information and process it. It doesn't indicate how good you'll be at a task. So if you and I, for example, had 100 and 110 IQ, obviously much lower than real life, but had 110 IQ, like theoretically you are 10% faster at picking up new skills, but it doesn't mean you'll be 10% better than me at that skill. So it's an interesting
funny
one.
Yeah.
I don't think it really is a great indicator, because the person I know in real life with the highest IQ, unfortunately, is is a little bit like this other bloke. Like, unfortunately, he didn't graduate uni, but he's kind of dropped out of uni and works fairly menial tasks, and I think is a bit of a waste of talent. And I suspect your comment earlier about the Missouri cow farmer was like, "What are you doing? Why aren't you doing something more?" And that was where my thinking about Elon Musk is. He's kind of sacrificed maybe his happiness or his ideals for humanity, because it certainly seems like that if you ask the Missouri farmer, he's probably having a great time. He's got his own
that's what he wants
intellect
to
and he
do.
wants to do, and he can do it at a high level. But there does seem to everybody, subconsciously at the very least, well, hang on, if you have the ability to split the atom, you probably should be doing that. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's really good. But there's that gets into a whole bunch of determinism and things like that. Like, if you have a talent that could benefit, who knows? This Missouri farmer could have killed cancer if he was in the lab for 50 years as opposed to, grazing cattle. Does he have an obligation, or should he feel an obligation to be somewhere he might not be his individual happiness or happiest, but he might do the most good? I find that. I mean, on that slight segue, I don't know if you wanted to add a bit more to it, but
I think
intelligence
that's-
is very fluid, and to your point, I don't think there is. We talked a little bit about Magnus Carlsen's IQ is insane. It's like 190, and I want to say I certainly don't think he's wasted his life, but some people might look at that and go, well, all he does is play chess and poker because he's an absolute weapon. Should he have maybe done something else? Well, who's to say?
I guess it comes into like he doesn't want to do anything else. Like
No,
it has
exactly.
to
He
do with like
loves the
interests
game,
and
yeah.
stuff, and like your brain really
But is that intelligence linked to the game of chess or pattern recognition more broadly? Because that's
Probably.
kind of what IQ is.
Well, you can be a computer. The computer's got a higher IQ than me,
Stupid
technically.
computers.
Like if you gave an AI machine an IQ test, it'd probably run to like 400. But that doesn't mean it can do anything. Like
No, that's very true.
I guess it can't bring a creative solution to anything. It just runs a
Ones and zeros.
it just runs a solution and a pattern recognition, and then it runs the problem
It's very rational.
at speed.
Cold, rational.
Yeah, but it can't bring like a new idea really at
It
this
can't-
stage.
yeah, it can't
it
give
just
light
puts
to
three
that.
other old ideas together.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it's to do with interests. Like, I guess you got like Isaac Newton sitting in a room for like 3 years, just looking at three calculus things and creating a new type of mathematics to look at something. And he wants to do that. Like, if you get the world's smartest person and put him in a room, you're like, I don't want to do this. I'm never going to come up with anything.
I'm just a normal guy. I
My
wanna see
brain doesn't work
life.
like this. Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, then, who are personally, who do you find most inspiring, or who do you think history's greatest minds are that you know that you would think of as great? It's a little bit light, because I think the main purpose of this is there's no real way to measure who is the smartest person in history, who is the greatest thinker, because there's no way to measure them. And as many a historian has pointed out, well, if you have seen further, you have stood on the shoulders of giants. Someone else has helped you along your own path. So it's very difficult to measure. But in your own mind, and obviously being a pretty learned fellow, who stands out to you as exceptional intellects and brilliant minds?
Well, I guess I just mentioned it, but I usually put Newton in there just because
He's brilliant.
he's brilliant, and I guess
Hard to argue, didn't he? Like the theory
yeah.
of a lot of things.
just coming out of like left field. I guess it's like no one else was really doing that at the time. Well, they were, but he's come along and been like, I'm going to think about this completely differently, and I'm going to bring something that no one else was, I guess, formulating. You're giving it a go, but I'm going to do this, and it's going to be that influential. It's going to kick off the Industrial Revolution. Like it's going to change everyone's worldview of how things, I guess, work, and the idea of how to approach physics problems. It seemed to me like out of nothing, if this dude just like, I can't come up with this stuff now. If you gave me like, do you know what I mean? If you're like, I'm going to figure out the theory of colors. So here's like, he came up with the
light
prism. Yeah. I mean, and this is what, like quite a long time ago.
300 years old.
Yeah. I mean,
I think 1700s, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably, if I didn't,
Is it 17th century? I don't know.
It's a great question. I think it's
a long time ago. It was 1700s or 17th century, obviously, but it was somewhere around there. Isaac Newton.
I think it's
Jamie,
like
look it up.
1710 or something. No, it would Industrial Revolution. Maybe it's 16 something because it's before America for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 15 something. Anyway,
No, I think he was a bit more recent.
I'm not sure.
But so he would be your number one.
I don't know about number one, but I put him in there like equal
Okay.
three.
Equal
There's as
three.
a person who's bringing a different mindset to the world that's come out of created a really ingenious idea when everyone else was thinking another way. And that's kind of the way I picture it. Da Vinci too. I think you're going to put that one in there.
Yeah,
just because
he's in mileage.
it's kind of undeniable. The dude's got like a finger in every single pie.
Yes.
Like it's kind of incredible.
You probably read somewhere he's like, I'm actually a champion wrestler or something. Like, physically just brilliant as well.
Well, he
Wow.
looked amazing in those photos of him. He's muscly as hell.
Yeah. Are those a little exaggerated?
I think
Why
so.
does Da Vinci have a 12-pack?
Well, it's just like it's like those self paintings of any of the monarchs. It's like this is what they look like. This is what they would have looked like. It's like an emaciated, just absolute crap head, and then they look amazing in the painting because they own that
style,
painting.
yeah. You don't want to get taken to the bloody Tower of London.
No, like you made me look too
That
pale
modern
and
photo
ghastly.
of Charles. I'm telling you, if that was 100 years ago, that guy would be just, he would be disappeared.
Yeah,
that is a terrible, like the look of like horror.
The big red painting? Oh, yeah.
When he pulls the ribbon, the curtain down, and then he kind of almost jumps backwards in fright. Like, what in the demonic hell is this piece of crap? And the guy's like explaining, like, it's actually really impressive. And he's like, this is hideous. This is a terrifying. I'm telling you right now, the inner monologue of that man was, I'm going to take you out. You have ruined me.
I have Illuminati powers. And
you are killing me.
you didn't even get my chubby fingers in there.
I know. What have you done to me?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
So
but
Da Vinci,
like he
yeah.
just
Yeah,
when it comes to curiosity, dude's got to be like number one, just to be the most curious person in the world.
say wisdom begins with wonder, and that guy.
Yeah,
all about
that guy's all
Yeah.
about it, and he's out there doing it too. It's not sitting in like I guess
wasn't
as a
just
philosopher, I'm
theories.
sitting in a cave, aren't I, doing
Yeah.
jack nothing.
We're
And
doing the Plato. Just
he's
I'm
digging
better
up
than you.
bodies out of the graveyard.
Exhuming bodies and blood transfusions.
Yeah,
We got a tank and did. I think one of the coolest things from my perspective is he did an aerial sketch of a town. Like, how'd you do that? And he's like, well, I just walked around the town and then just drew it from memory as
Right.
if I was a bird's eye. Like, that's ridiculous. How do you
Spatial
even,
reasoning.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
incredible.
100%.
Like, there's just
Wow.
I mean, the guy probably would have been a brilliant chess player too. So.
Do you reckon he's a little bit like? Do you reckon he'd be like a weirdo? For sure, I reckon for sure.
If he had also, like, just
Not
if
in a
he
bad
was
way,
a
but
charming guy as
yeah.
well, you'd be like, it's a little bit unfair. I'm like, hang on a second.
He's gotta be,
because
like-
usually you see, like, to your point,
Yeah.
like the Isaac Newtons were a little bit social.
Introverted.
I think what do they say? The amount of energy and power required by your brain for social interactions is enormous.
Hmm.
So most of these people that are, potentially super geniuses, even a lot of these great chess players, are a little bit socially distant because they don't deal with that side of things as well because they've got so much mind power dedicated elsewhere.
100%. They're introverted.
I don't know. It definitely seems it's probably a pattern there. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, could you imagine if he was just like he was the Ubermensch that Nietzsche was writing about? Like, can you just be more like Da Vinci? Like, sorry, mate, can't. He's actually kind of a one of one here.
He's a one of one.
I
Yeah.
don't know. All right, so who's
number three?
who's
I really
number-
struggle with number three. I don't know.
You don't know?
I mean, I probably have like to put a philosopher in there, but like which
Chuck out
one?
Plato or something.
Yeah, but like
Look at you.
I guess I'll probably put Plato in there. Do you put Descartes in there? I mean, do you put like
Well,
I like
Descartes, isn't he more known for his mathematics than his philosophy, though?
the Cartesian stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I
I don't
guess.
know. Well, what's I don't
I only know his philosophical stuff.
philosophical stuff.
I mean,
think,
you could.
therefore I am.
I do like I do like Wittgenstein's a German from like mid 19th century,
Okay.
mid 20th century, sorry, and then I do like Bertrand Russell. He's got some really good stuff.
Bertrand Russell's awesome.
Yeah,
I think his
I
granddad
like
was
his mind.
saying like was in Parliament when Napoleon was crowned emperor. Or something.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, I just didn't realize how quickly things changed from
Yeah.
the Napoleonic era.
It's not that long ago.
because he died in the early 1900s, didn't he? He was quite old.
Maybe like the
he was-
40s or something. Yeah, I don't know.
he was quite
Yeah.
old after the First World War, and he obviously fairly aristocratic, wealthy
Mm.
dude. But he was cool. Like, I remember there's videos of him talking about his childhood, and it's like significantly pre-electricity.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of a crazy.
I-
It's even just hard to because my grandparents grew up in a time with electricity. Like, they never knew no electricity.
But their grandparents
Yeah,
was basically the same
yeah.
that long ago. It's not that far.
No,
But yeah, he's a really good example of
Bertrand
really
Russell is
rich,
pretty good.
intellectual English guy that kind of like lived through the Great British and the end of the Great British part and modernity
Yeah.
stuff. He's very interesting stuff.
I
he
like
says.
him. Yeah, definitely seems.
But
like
is he
a cool
great
guy.
mind? I don't know. Like the top three is pretty hard.
Well,
I'll just put
it's
Plato in
It's
there.
your list, mate. Oh, I'm just agonising over this. It's your list.
Let's
Who do
say
you wanna
Plato
put?
slash
Okay.
Socrates because who knows if
Well,
they're the
that's
same
exactly
person.
right.
Yeah.
They may as well be.
For all intents
Historic,
and
yeah, it's
purposes.
like they're the same mentally. Okay, well, I'll jump through mine. Tell me, obviously, if you have any major issues with anyone. But number 3 for me would be William Shakespeare. I think, again, I'm a big fan. I'm sort of a romantic, I guess. I like the human element to things. And I don't know if... I don't know how the world would look without William and the stories that he told and the way they were, like the way they speak to people and move the hearts of man, I think was quite impressive. And obviously, I mean, I don't know anyone that thinks he's not a genius. So why not put him on this list as a great thinker? He kind of invented half the slang we use in some way,
Yeah.
and told stories with a depth that is, let's say, fairly rare in modern times. I know my favorite. I think it's Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. I believe it's the to be or not to be.
Yeah. Okay. I always forget if it's Macbeth or that one, but I'm pretty sure it's Hamlet. Yeah.
I think it's Hamlet. But that, like, very, very cool. And I could spend 40 minutes talking about how your life can be, summarized on like get up and go. A lot of life is just giving it a go. fail, get up and go again. Choose to be, basically, is the answer to the question. Now, I have Da Vinci as number 2. Again, I think just having brilliance in so many ways. And, I wouldn't consider him to be the best artist of his age. I would say Michelangelo is by far the better artist. And by far the better artist. But, being able to do so many things at a very high level, to me, makes you, number 2 on my list.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Michelangelo being better. He's a sculptor and
just even his work was just better. Like, what's the best painting that Leonardo da Vinci did?
I suppose it's Mona Lisa.
Right. Yeah. But I don't want to shit on the guy, but I would take the Sistine Chapel any day. And Michelangelo wasn't a painter. Yeah. He was primarily he preferred sculpting to painting.
Yeah, and his sculpting I think is better.
But it is. Yeah, definitely. That's his primary thing. But I would still think his painting is better than Leonardo's.
I like the more impressive because it's at scale and the whole story behind the whole thing. But yeah. I'm certainly probably not qualified to say how to quantify classical art, but to me, just as a layman looking at it, I'm like, I like that better. Yeah, I agree.
And again, there's more of it.
Well, there's better paintings than the Mona Lisa, I think, in general.
Yeah, Mona Lisa, I think, is a bit overrated, but it's still cool, like certainly. But I don't think it's the number one painting.
Yeah.
But anyway, I agree with you in the sense that I think Leonardo da Vinci's understanding of so many areas of excellence, you can't look past him. And number 1 would be St. Thomas Aquinas for me. I thought about Aristotle when I was writing the list and taking some notes. I thought Aristotle would be my number 1. I'm certainly very partial to a lot of Aristotelian ideals. And then I thought a little bit longer on that. I'm like, well, actually, Thomas Aquinas is fairly similar to Aristotle, but he's Catholic, so better, I guess, would be the way I would characterize that. And obviously, the top 3 is ridiculously difficult to do, but I like that list of people. I think captures a pretty broad scope of genius. And again, like I don't think there's really any way to objectively quantify intelligence, but I certainly like those 3 guys. Certainly read a lot of 2 of them, at least. I don't know if there's much I'm reading of my man Leonardo, but okay. Look, we'll move into a segment called First Thought. The way it works is I'm going to present Cameron with a philosophical dilemma. He has not seen the philosophical dilemma yet, so it's going to be kind of putting him on the spot. I'm going to get his take, and then we're going to have a chat about it together and see if as you think about it more, is there anything that you missed? But I want to get your first thoughts on the train dilemma, which I'm probably sure most of you have heard of in the past. But if you haven't, it's an out-of-control tram is coming down the tracks and will run over 5 people. You have the ability to flick a switch and move the tram to a different track, and only 1 person will die. What do you do?
The classic train example. This is like
philosophy 101.
There's like about 5 thought experiments, I guess you call them. They love thought experiments. I think, and they give them this one. This one's like one of the introductory ones, which is fun. What do you do?
Don't cop out on me and say morally, if you do nothing, you have nothing to apologize for.
Well, like
is this entire thing undergirded with a false philosophy of utilitarianism? Is that essentially what this is asking you?
Yeah, it's the problem's there to illuminate different ways of thinking and different ways to approach ethics and different belief systems, and then after you answer, they usually tell you what it means. So if you think you want to save the maximum amount of people and you want to get the most utility, it's utilitarianism would flick the switch, right? The utilitarianism would 100% flick the switch and kill 1 person.
Yeah. Those guys.
There's people who come for, there's like 3 or 4 different branches of ethics. One's called, there's utilitarianism, there's virtue ethics, which is your man Aristotle effectively, plus like a few others adding on, which is like it's not like specific set of rules. It's like we bring the virtues of different ways in acting and how to act in the world. Yep. Then there's like deontological set, which is actually just a set of rules. Like these are the rules we're going to run by, and it's like pretty much unfathomable, which actually in philosophy Christianity falls under that one. It's rule based, effectively like 10 Commandments or whatever. Which I remember in university, I don't know, this is pretty controversial, but they said that anyone who runs on a deontological would mainly not touch the switch at all, because they'd say you can't kill anyone, and if you touch it, you're effectively killing in the act. You didn't do anything to like set the train in motion, but if you touch it, you're like killing someone.
You become a party to it. It is obviously a little bit silly, because when on earth are you ever going to run into a situation like that? But I guess the spirit of the argument is, I don't know, it always seemed to me like it was a fairly, I won't say straightforward, but it was a fairly straightforward utilitarian experiment. Do you value, or how do you assign value to people? I guess, from a Christian perspective, I don't want anyone to die, and I don't want to be a party to anyone dying, because if you put, my wife on the one and then 5 strangers on the 5, I'm sorry, it's not much of a decision for me, but I'm not a utilitarian either. So it's a very, to me, it's always been it's almost like cold kind of modern sort of, well, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few kind of thing. And I've never been necessarily partial to that way of thinking. So you haven't answered the question, though.
No, I don't, well, to be honest,
I don't.
Like,
it's probably.
I think when I was at uni, I said don't touch the track because I don't want to be involved or something, because I thought it was like, what's going on? This is ridiculous. I think in reality, you probably got to flip the switch in this very specific example, because like people want to play out of it. They go, why is the track there? Can I like shoot the driver? Like there's the whole point is like there's no outside influence. You have to either not touch it, or
so all things being equal,
you
would take. Obviously, you'd save the greater amount of people.
In that specific example, I think you're supposed to pull the thing. Right?
Yeah, well, they're setting it up to be.
Yeah, like you are supposed to save
add
lives.
on things like, well, if it's your mum on one side, how do you justify your mum, or how do you? I guess it's almost an anti-human way of assigning value.
Yeah, it is.
Because you
supposed
say,
to
well,
poke holes in your belief system.
Yeah, what if it's the president of America on one side? Yeah, well, don't answer that now. But maybe 20 years ago, we weren't as political. Like, is this person more important than these 5 unknown people, and how do you ascribe value to those people?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, I mean, I think if you really think about it as you get older, I don't think if one side was one person that was one of your relatives and the other side was 5 people you didn't know, I think if you really got into it, most people would probably switch it to kill the people they don't know, or leave it. They wouldn't touch it, right?
It'd be kind of strange.
It's a ridiculous.
Don't you think?
Example.
Like if I don't know anyone that would kill their mum to save 5 strangers.
I just think emotionally you probably want to spot, be like, what's going on?
Yeah, but and again, this is part of the issue with, I think, a few philosophical thought experiments, is that they're a little bit overly vague, and they have that kind of secret Socratic thing with like, we're going to come in here and tell you why you're wrong, as opposed to providing a solution to a problem, which is a little bit cheeky.
Yeah, I know.
And obviously I picked this one because it is very well known, and it is a little bit cheeky, and I just thought it'd be funny to throw you on.
No, it's a good one, but you're supposed to approach it entirely logical. So like, entirely logical, you're supposed to kill the one person.
Yeah, it's materialistic, almost transhuman ideology.
Yeah.
Where you're like, well, I've just got to... they're not fish in a barrel. I think that's the problem, that it is a human being. And obviously, I get that there are practical issues with the scenario.
Well, what happens if the train was going towards 5 people? Sorry, it was going towards... the one. If you switch it, you know what I mean? Do you then kill the one person? It's harder to do that, I think. It's when you're acting on the switch, it's harder. So if the train was going towards 5 and you had to switch it to kill your mum, or if the train was going towards your mum and you had to switch it to kill the 5, that's a different
Do you
action.
think so?
Yeah, I think it's a different approach.
Do you, in that scenario, would you feel more comfortable? Obviously, it'd be easier because it takes the pressure off you if the train's never going toward the person that you like.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've known you for a long time. I can't imagine. I can't imagine you pulling the lever. To condemn your mum.
No, I probably not. But I think the examples, like when you're thinking about this,
I don't think that makes you. I genuinely don't think that makes you a bad person. If you're sitting there listening and going, no, I wouldn't do it, because I get there is an element of, well, I feel kind of dirty because I've put myself before the greater good. I haven't maybe done your duty,
I guess.
But I mean, I don't think in this ridiculous scenario, I don't think that makes you
But do you have unlimited time to make the decision? Because if that's the thing,
so you're just sitting there talking to your mum
emotions in
like,
it.
it's okay, you know, I have 7 years left before the train comes, so I'm chatting away with mum, and you know she's getting older anyway.
So what about this then? If it's one's your mum and the other one is 1 million people, just theoretically, obviously.
So I again, extreme scenario elicit a fairly extreme response. I'm not interested in the numbers. It doesn't really matter to me, because it could be, on the one hand, everybody that I know and care about on one track, and then, you know, the world on the other track. Well, you know, in a way, my world is on that one side, because who are you? You're not alone. You need people around you, and I don't think I could make that decision. So it would always be, to me, the way I would approach it would always be on the more selfish side.
So if the train's going towards your whole world,
yep,
and then you got to switch it to go towards 7
everybody,
billion people.
Yeah. I'm sorry. That's how. You're asking me how I would do it. I would go, well, I would save everyone that I knew and liked and cared for and interacted. And the people that I've never met before. I think if you really think about it, if they don't exist, it doesn't change anything that you're doing.
Right. I don't know. That's when it changes for me. I think you got to save the 7 billion.
Because I think I don't want to say like I'm having a go at you. I think the easy answer is to go, yeah, I'll save the 7 billion, because that's just so many people. But that's the point. It's so many. It's too many to even comprehend properly. You can't conceptualize a billion.
No,
you can't even conceptualize like 1,000.
Yeah.
If I showed you what does 1,000 sheep look like, you'd be like, oh, a lot, tons. 7 billion, dude, forget about it. You're just talking donkey numbers. It doesn't mean anything to me. I can't in my head conceptualize that high a number.
Yeah.
And I suppose I know a lot of people.
Yeah.
I know the world would be very empty.
Yeah, well, I don't think the world would be able to operate. Everyone would die anyway. But I think
obviously it'd be a small population in Brisbane. Basically.
Yeah, for the purpose of the thing, I don't think you're supposed to think about future outcomes. You're supposed to just think about, because if you did that, the whole world would collapse. And you'd probably end up dying anyway.
Eventually you would die, but you would just have to, I guess, farm or something with the few hundred people that you live with.
Be going and stealing cans of beans for the next 20 years.
It's okay. I watched I Am Legend. There's plenty of food around. It's fine.
Well, there would be for only
people. It is. You put, my son, who's not yet 2 years old, against 1 million people. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I have a son. Like, there's not a number of people that I would save over him. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That makes sense. And I was kind of on that train before I had kids, but having kids, you're like, well, there's nothing I wouldn't do to protect or to be there. And it is a fairly ridiculous scenario. But in that scenario, I'm like, well, I'm sorry. It's my son. I care about him much more than I care about the city of Melbourne. I'm sorry, bro. Like,
that's a hard one.
It just is. Like, it just is. It's my little boy.
Well, there's also the thing too. Like, what happens if there's a baby on the one side and the 7 or the 5 people on the other side are all 95? You probably got to kill the 95-year-olds. Like,
of course.
100%.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Like, the whole scenario is a way of assigning value to humans, which I think is wrong, because human life is valuable, and it's valuable to different people at different times. And you can't really look at it in a purely numerical way, because you're right. Like, if you have a sign that says these 5 people all have terminal cancer, and we're like, oh, that's pretty easy.
Damn.
No one is saving
They're
them.
all like murderers. You're like, oh, well,
this is very easy all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't feel bad about it. They're all on death row.
Yeah.
Like, it's very, very easy. It's much harder if it's 5 children and then one 95-year-old. Well, then
5 children, but one of them is Hitler.
That's another whole discussion.
So I guess what you're saying would be you're on like a set of, it's almost the virtue ethics side. So it's not rule based, because I guess your thing is not saying like a set of rules. One of the rules in, I guess, ethical thing would be no murder, but you're murdering in this scenario. So your thing would be virtue ethics in a way that is actually Aristotelian. 100%.
That makes sense,
which would be like, I am here to protect my family. This is one of my virtues.
This is definitely
one of my strong virtues would be family values or something. So that's like over trumping the lives of others.
Yeah, again, I don't think it should be clear. There's no desire to be going out there, you know, killing the world. Just like it's a bit ridiculous. The point though, if you follow you're thinking through, if you're willing to sacrifice, this is from a utilitarian perspective, if you're willing to sacrifice one more person to save your mum, that number may as well be infinity because it doesn't actually matter. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're willing to kill 100 people for your mum, what's 101?
Well, I'm assigning value.
That's what I mean. But like if you would say today, right now, if your mum is on the one side and there's 100 strangers on the other side, and you're willing to save your mum over the 100 people, there is no difference between 100 and 101. Do you know what I mean?
True.
There's what would change in your mind to extrapolate that number off? And this is something that, you joke about a lot, or I'm sure you've heard the sort of nonsense jokes like, would you do X act for $1 billion? And I'm like, well, look, I wouldn't do that act for any amount of money. And some people will go, well, I'll do it for $1 billion. I'm like, well, the problem with doing it for $1 billion is you do it for $100 million. Oh yeah. Well, then you do it for $1 million or $1 million, $1 million. And all of a sudden you're at a situation where you're like, well, you just, it isn't an ethical issue for you. You're just bartering for money. Do you know what I mean? Like if someone said to you, hey, I don't know, trying to think of something that's not super gross, but it's, for blokes, it's usually, doing something gross with a guy basically. And you're saying, look, I'm not into that. I don't care about the money. I'm not doing that ever for any money. And then the people that say, oh, look, I'll do it. Once you accept that you will do it, the money is actually irrelevant because we know you'll do it now, and you can just slowly slide the money scale back and find, I guess, a spot. But you could use their justification at pretty much any amount of money.
You could, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But so from a theoretical, philosophical perspective, once you've come to that conclusion, you can start moving the scale fairly freely, and the justification remains the same, even though the scale has slid.
That's true, but I mean, there is a point. They'll be like,
of course, yeah. People are going to say like,
This is almost like actually another philosophical thing, which is like the paradox of assigning. I think it was called like the pile of grains of salt or something. There's a paradox of assigning value or description towards something. Like, you got one grain of salt, that's not a pile. But you got two, is that a pile? And someone's like, oh, not really. But you have 50, is that a pile? I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, well, when did it become a thing?
Yeah.
There's a thing when it's hard to really prescribe what you're actually trying to describe and put a label on of what, like, I want $1 million because that would do this for me. But exactly. Would $999,000 do that for me? Sure. Yeah, probably. But yeah, there is a limit where it's like, hang on a sec, no, that's like no good. And you're kind of randomly labeling that value.
Well, put it this way. I'll put a sort of a more practical. Would you steal a TV for $1 billion? Well, yeah, of course.
Is there anything bad happening apart from the stealing of the TV?
Well, you steal a TV. We're in Australia. For those international listeners, like the worst thing is you're probably gonna get a fine. Do you know what I mean? Like you probably get slapped on the wrist. Really, you're not gonna go to jail for 20 years for stealing a TV. But for $1 billion, you'd say, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, probably do it.
Yeah, of course you would. Like it kind of, in a way, be
from
kind of silly
Kmart?
not
Where
to. From JB Hi-Fi, just walk in and just steal the TV off the shelf. You're like, okay, you do that.
Yeah, I'll probably do that.
Of course you would. But then you'd also do it for $100 million. Of
course I would.
You'd do it for $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'd do it for $100,000.
Nah, probably not.
$100,000.
Yeah, because it wouldn't make me feel any good. $100,000 doesn't do anything in these days, which is really sad.
So like $1 million, you're like, well, I can do this. I get in trouble. My face on the news for 24 minutes, and then you buy a house and you move on with your life.
Potentially, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. I'm just saying. Like, I think philosophically, if you are on the sort of more, I don't know, if your worldview is predicated on right and wrong, you're like, it doesn't really matter because you shouldn't do it.
Shifting.
Do you know what I mean?
Barriers.
Like,
basically, if you have a thing that's like, I shall never steal, that's not real because you will steal in a certain situation.
You, like, and again, hypocrisy is the tribute vice pays to virtue. So I understand like there is a relationship between what humans say they'll do and what they'll actually do. And even if you say and believe like, hey, stealing is wrong and bad, sometimes you're like, well, maybe, my family's starving, maybe I'll steal some bread. Like you could make a concession in your own mind and rationalize it however you will. But I would still contend that is still wrong. Do you know what I mean? Even if it is for a noble cause, like right and wrong are still right and wrong, even if there is a noble cause at the end. Because I don't believe the ends justify the means. So again, to go back to the train the end result of saving more people doesn't outweigh the means by which killing my own family or son or whoever doesn't outweigh it for me. Doesn't move the needle.
But you could say the end could also be you saving your family, and the means is killing everybody on Earth.
For sure, 100%.
So then the
that's a fair way
the
of
means.
Yeah, that's a fair way of putting it. I guess the inverse got me there really, but again, my way of rationalizing it would be different.
Yeah,
because there is something to be said. Again, this is getting a bit ridiculous now, but like, what damage and what impact would it have on you in your life if everyone that you know and care for died so that the rest of the world could live?
Yeah, it'd be pretty bad for
me. You're just a very charismatic guy who makes some new friends and do a podcast with your mate Jon Snow from down the road. It'd be fine, but most people would be. There's a lot of trauma that would go into that for you. So you're almost killing yourself by killing everyone that you know and love.
Self-sacrificing type of stuff.
Yeah,
that's good though in some respects. Sacrifice for the greater good. I mean, to be honest, I think it comes a point when the person themselves might be like, if you know that person well enough, that person might be like, yeah, kill me, that's fine.
Because I would look like at me on the train track and give me that nod.
Yeah, well, if you
gotta do it.
For example, if you're
you gotta do it. You gotta do it.
Like, gotta do it. You can't do it, man. I already talked about this. No, I mean, I wouldn't like to die. No one wants to do that. But there's a few people I know that would literally be like, well, I'm 60 or whatever. Yeah, definitely kill me and save these people. 100%.
Value, yeah.
So if I was honouring their wishes, I'd be like, okay, fine, because I can't be selfish on that one.
It does kind of give you a bit of a get out of jail free card if the people on the track are like, you got to do it.
Yeah, of course it does.
Yeah. Of course it does. If I hypothetically, my dad's on the track and he's like, you take me out. I'm like, well, now I'm kind of, I feel morally,
take me out. They would follow that. Then you could say like, you're in the box, you got the headphones on. That's like people following orders in bloody Nazi Germany. I got told to do it. I got the nod.
Just get out of control. This is just a simple train dilemma. What are you doing?
Yeah. Okay. It's really funny. I do change. I honestly, I can't say I'm set on anything. I'd probably emotionally in the moment, I'd probably always be saving my family. Logically and philosophically, I probably have to say I'd always kill the one person. If I didn't know them at all, I think you kind of got to kill the one person. Like, I don't know how you get out of that. Although not acting at all, if you don't believe in murder whatsoever, you can get out of it.
If it was all strangers, for me, I think I would be very hard pressed to be involved in any way. Like, if I don't know anyone and your action is going to result in the death of someone, I don't think I would get involved.
It's pretty hard, yeah.
But if it is my family, well, so I'm involved because it's my family. Do you know what I mean?
I guess the thing is, regardless of what you want to do, everyone's a little bit utilitarian. You don't want to kill people. Everyone wants to save the most amount at all times. Like, that's just how we work. Numbers. I mean, you could change the example to be someone drowning, and you're standing there watching them drown. That's different from like saving one and then there's six other people drowning.
Actually, way better. It's like you see a woman and a baby. Yeah, and like a teenage boy or something, and they're both drowning, and you can only save one. You can only get to one of them.
Because not doing anything in that example seems stupid, right?
Yeah, of course. So you do something, but what would you do? We're not going to get into that because that's another 35 minutes of going around. But that's a much better train dilemma than the train dilemma.
Nothing logically has changed because you're still flicking the switch is the same as like putting your hand out and grabbing them.
I don't know. The flicking the switch thing is. In that instance, someone's going to survive. Like, one of the groups is going to survive. In this instance, everyone's going to die if you do nothing. So you can't abstain yourself. Or you can, but then everyone dies. But like in a train, if you just keep walking, nothing has changed. Like, you just aren't involved.
Yeah, that's it. Well, there's a proximity paradox too, where they say that like, so there's a philosopher, like I think Peter Singer is like the most famous Australian philosopher who's alive. He's like the number one, even though no one knows who he is. But anyway, he's an ethics guy.
Philosopher?
Yeah,
what?
I think he's the head of like Barclay or something. He's like,
really?
He's anyway, old bloke now, but he's an ethics dude, and he says like,
get him on the podcast.
He'd never come out. This just like writing books and everything. So yeah, if we did this for a flashback to this specific example, do a flashback to this. That'd be amazing. But he says like if someone drowning in a pond and you walk by, you'd clearly save them. If there's someone drowning in a pond 100 meters away and you walk by, you'd probably go and save them. If they're like 20,000 kilometers away and you could easily save them, but they're not drowning now, they're doing something else, then you kind of still. The proximity of the proximity of someone that you can easily save doesn't matter if you can like do something that's quite simple to you to save them. And I think his example is like give $20 to someone who's dying of famine, right, sort of thing. And I get that,
Jeez.
but I think it's way more nuanced than that.
It does seem like a bit simplistic. Like, give me $1 and you'll save 6 African kids or something. You're like, I don't know.
No, imagine this is not funny, but imagine TV ads like, there are 20 drowning people right now. Donate right now. I'm like, oh man. There's a man standing by ready to save them with your $20.
Did you see that skit where it was like, I don't know, it was a Key and Peele on it, and they have the van. Oh no, the guy pulls up. He's like, would you like, donate $1 saves a kid's life, and they're like, oh, okay, here's $5, and they're like, all right, and the van like drives up, and they just kick 5 kids out, and there's other kids in there like, help me, and he's like, I'll give you more money. He's like, too late, mate, this is it, and they drive off.
I've seen this.
There's some stupid funny crowd. It's
Stupid
so
as hell,
terrible.
but
But yeah, no, that's sort of what you're saying. Just there's a guy standing by, he needs your money right now to act. You're like, what is he, an animatronic man? Put the $1 on the back of him, he's gonna save them. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But then by that logic, you'd just be giving away all your money at all times.
Yeah,
and
you
have
just
nothing
don't
left.
have anything. Or every dollar above your base needs would be donated.
Yeah,
And I don't think
which maybe is what we should be doing.
get out of here. Okay, I think that'll do it for today. I hope you've all enjoyed listening to us as much as we've enjoyed talking to ourselves. As always, please like and share amongst your friends, and feel free to drop any questions into the comments or topics that you'd like to hear us discuss. Until next time, see you later.